Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny review. Here we go. Spoilers coming at the end of the video. I'll give you a heads up. If I were you and you're just looking to see a movie in general, just as a movie without any of the baggage, good or bad, that comes with Indiana Jones, I would not see this movie. Yeah, as a standalone movie, I would skip this. It's not very good. It just kind of sits there. Now, I don't hate this movie. I'm conflicted about this movie, so let's be clear. It's not just like, it's a bad movie, let's move on with our lives. There's a lot to say about this movie, okay? But it does. It just kind of sits there. None of the stunts blow you away. It's not like, I remember even seeing the trailer for the last James Bond movie, even just this moment. I was like, okay, that's fucking cool. Nothing in the trailer for the new Indy and nothing in the movie of the new Indy made me respond in such a way. It was just kind of like, okay, you know, there were a couple of little moments here and there, but nothing as good as this. And that should tell you something. I mean, Indiana Jones is supposed to be at least back in the day, was the litmus test for cool stunts and edge of your seat thrills. And oh my God, can you believe they did that? And now it's just kind of meh, kind of sits there. There's no earned laughs in this movie. Here's how I know. Well, I mean, it's only in theaters. I watched a bootleg copy. I'm sick. I have a really bad earache right now. And so I did buy a ticket. I bought a ticket at the Cinepolis or Cineop, whatever the fuck you call it. So I did pay for it, but I did watch a bootleg copy. And it was filmed with a camera because you could see every now and then somebody would walk around in the audience. You know, it was good picture, good sound, but it was shot in real time in a theater. I remember seeing this moment. The theater laughed for probably 2 minutes. You couldn't hear the dialogue of the tent scene coming up because that's how big a laugh this was. And obviously there's tons of laughs in lots of movies you go to today, but this movie doesn't have any of them. There was at most, there was one scene where people were like, and it kind of very tepid. Very tepid. It's fine, right? If you get dragged to it, you're not going to hate it. If you pay to see it, you'll probably be like, well, I saw it. I can be part of the conversation such as it is. It's not making much money. It's not like everybody's going and you'll miss out talking about it. But it's like a 4 out of 5 out of 10 as a standalone movie. Now, if you love Indiana Jones, and I love Indiana Jones, man, I came out to California because Raiders inspired me and let me realize, holy shit, there's a career in being creative. And I came out to LA to make movies, eventually video games and whatnot, because that movie stirred my soul and woke something in me that changed my life. And Temple of Doom, it's not the world's best movie, but it's a great fucking indie movie. And Last Crusade is pretty fucking good too. Okay, so I love this character. Adore him to this day. I've named my last company Bartlett after Jed Bartlett from the goddamn Cockadoodie West Wing, and Bartlett Jones after Indiana Jones. I love this character. Character means a great deal to me. But this movie is really, to me, interesting if you're a fan, because what I have seen online from my age group, both people I know and people I don't know, is if you came up with Indy, it's a better movie because there's an emotional tie to this character. This is a real Gen X hero. And even though I know younger people like him, blah, 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 he really found his way into our pop culture, and he never really traveled all that much beyond the Gen X borders in the way that maybe Star Wars did, or even to some extent James Bond did. So I get a lot of my friends who are seeing it and saying, oh my God, I cried and it's emotional and this and that and the other. Okay. I didn't feel that way at all. I felt very but certainly, you know, if you're into Indiana Jones, maybe it'll hit you harder than it hit me. And I love Indy, but it just didn't hit me. It disappointed me, and I'll tell you why. Here's what's, I think, fascinating about Indiana Jones. So most people know the lore that Spielberg and Lucas decided to make Indiana Jones because Spielberg wasn't allowed to direct a James Bond movie. And George Lucas, the story goes, is it true? Who knows? But the story goes, I have something better, and it's Indiana Jones. And so they basically made their own version of James Bond. And that's great. Great story. With Spielberg, you never fucking know what his PR really is true and not. But it's a great story. Regardless, they made it. It was inspired by James Bond, so much to the point they went and got James Bond to be Indy's dad in the third motion picture show. Thing is, there were 2 movies, Raiders and Temple, where they were on that track, right? And I know Temple didn't make as much money as Raiders, and it wasn't as warmly received as Raiders, but it was on that track of basically, here's this guy going after cool supernatural relics all over the world in this time period, go. Let's just make a shit ton of these fucking things. And somewhere along the lines after Temple of Doom, the character and the franchise became way, in my opinion, too precious for Lucas, Spielberg, and Harrison Ford. They spent forever finding scripts that they would agree on. that were good enough. There's a huge gap between Last Crusade and the horrible Crystal Skull because, as the story goes, they couldn't find a script they agreed on, and that's the fucking script they agreed. Whatever, I don't know, man. But what was fascinating to me was Spielberg talking about Last Crusade and why he jumped into Last Crusade. And he was like, well, you know, now it's about the dad, and there's this whole new angle on the character and all this shit. And I'm just like, they took, after Temple, there were two directions they could have gone. They could have gone the James Bond direction, which is like, yeah, there's character and pathos and all that, but that's like 10% of it. 90% of it is the mechanics of this kind of action adventure movie, the settings, the tone, and we could have had 11, 12 Indiana Jones movies by now. And some of them, like Pizza, would have been great. And some of them would have been like, just like James Bond. Nobody talks about Quantum of Solace, whatever the fuck it's called. Skyfall, though, awesome. I thought No Time to Die was pretty fucking good, right? Some of them better than others, but there's still, you get to hang out with James Bond. Who's going to complain for the most part? I wanted them to go in that direction. But instead, every indie movie, well, we've got to find something to say about the character. First it's the dad, then it's his son, and now in this one it's aging and Marion and family. And I'm just like, just shut the fuck up. Stop. You took this gravy train of a brilliant franchise that didn't need all the weight of that on it, and you guys, you should have handed it off to somebody after Temple that actually wanted to make Indiana Jones movies. Here's how I know, because there's a part of Dial of Destiny, and it's marbled throughout, but it's mostly in the first 40 minutes, but not entirely, where it feels like a good 7 out of 10 Indiana Jones movie. Like, is it the best? No, but it's indie, right? They open it. This is not spoilers. You've seen this on the train, and it's back in World War II where they de-age Harrison Ford. Is it a perfect de-aging? No, but it's getting better. It's good enough. I'm moving on with my fucking life. I bought it. There's some stuff in modern day. There's a cool subway sequence and stuff with the horse. It's great. It's not amazing, but it's great. And then, of course, inevitably, it's like, well, this puts, gotta act. It's time for acting. It's time for pathos and all this shit. And again, we go down this road, you know, but the point is, you see in that moment, they could have gone down that road of Indy is Bond, but they didn't. And so we've ended up with 2.5. Basically, Kingdom was crap, and this is not crap, but it's better than Kingdom, but it's not great. Movies where they're getting in the way of themselves because they want to say something poignant about the character, whatever. And the ironic part is the movie's opening at the very low end of its tracking at about 60 million after 3 days, which is absurd for a character as beloved as Indy. But there you go. And it's because most people don't give a fuck about Indy because they were so fucking precious with it that they made so few of them that it would be like me when I was, 12 years old or 10 years old. And my dad's like, let's go see this fucking movie. Mr. Smith Goes to Texas. Who's Mr. Smith? Oh, it's just great. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington back in the 40s from, Frank Capra and Jimmy Stewart. It's like nobody, they didn't do anything with this franchise. And now they're surprised that nobody's fucking showing up for it. They could have, but they were too fucking precious. And that's a real fucking shame. And if they would have kept going, kids would know who they were. They should have rehired Indiana Jones. This idea that only Harrison Ford, fuck you, only Harrison Ford can play Indiana Jones. What are you talking about? It's a character. What are you talking about? Of course that's not true. We see it in James Bond. We see it in The Witcher. We see it in Doctor Who. We see it all throughout movies and certainly genre films. We see it in Marvel with War Machine. It's not the same fucking actor. Nobody cares. Not enough people to not make a movie because it's just dumb. Fucking, you could have had 10 people play Indy up until this point and you would have kept it going, kept it exciting. Anyway, it is what it is. The stunts in the movie are It's really weird, man. The action in this movie is not very good. There's a scene, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it takes Indy to a place where we've never seen Indy before. And that's great. I love that. That's so Indiana Jones Marvel Comics or Indiana Jones, the novels where they wrote standalone stories where it's like, let's put Indy here. He's usually in the jungle or in a tomb. Let's put him in this adventurous location. That's cool. But nothing, it's terribly shot. I don't mean photographed, but in terms of it terribly presented. Nothing happens. It's like, let's go get this thing. They go get this thing. Oh, no, there's a scary moment. There's not scary anymore. Now they're done. Like, there was nothing cinematic about it. It was almost like, here's a documentary where Indy goes to get this thing, and he gets it, and he brings it back, and there you go. It was really weird. And I'm a James Mangold fan. Hell, I like Night and Day with Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz. The man can do stunts, right? Wolverine, come on now. Well, this is terrible when it comes to, you have so many expectations, and the stunts are just lukewarm. The script, this was okay. I mean, look, there's cool stuff in this script, and I'm not going to spoil it, but out of all the Indiana Jones movies, this is neck and neck with the Ark in terms of, I know it's the Dial of Destiny is a stupid fucking title, but what they're going after, but more importantly, why they want it and why the bad guys want it, it's like, that's pretty cool. If they can pull off their plans, it would be horrible, but that's pretty cool. And so you're in, you know, and you're in for the first 30 or 40 minutes, and then the script gets into this thing where, I shit you not, I'm not spoiling anything when I tell you, it's a 2 hour, 30 minute or something movie. The last hour and a half of the movie is Indy has the thing, and the bad guys want it. Then the bad guys want it, and Indy chases them and gets it. And then they get it back, and then Indy chases them and gets it. And then they get it back until the very fucking end of the movie. It is like, it's just ping pong. It's tennis with the item. And maybe that would be okay if, as they went on the adventure, there were new things being revealed in the narrative. But it's not. It's just like, we have it, let's keep it. Oh no, there's a fight. They took it. They have it. Let's go chase them and get it. We got it. Now they want it back. It's like, what is this? Who's reading and writing this and going, it was pretty fucking good. It doesn't build. It's just the same fucking thing until the end. I am glad I watched it at home, truth be told, because I got bored at times and I paused it and went and played Dave the Diver or put some eardrops in my fucking ear or whatever. Because there were times I'm sitting at home and I'm just like, oh my God, come on. And I didn't want to fast forward or anything, but I was just like, let's go. It dragged. It really, it dragged crazy. Helena Shaw, his goddaughter, again, no spoilers, you know that from the trailer, whatever. She's fine. She's not like, oh my God. Like, I know there people were rumored that she's going to take over the franchise. If that was ever the goal, which I don't know if it was or not, she ain't the one to give it to. Because she's just forgettable. She's fine. There's a new kid in this movie who's forgettable. Really kind of doesn't have much to say about him. He's just kind of there. Didn't really have much. Didn't stick to my bones. I don't even know his fucking name. The last thing I'll say before I get into spoiler territory very briefly is just what fascinated me. There's something that happens in the movie that is a little batshit. And I won't tell you what it is, but it's a little batshit, but it works. And it's so batshit compared to Mutt Williams and Crystal Skull doing the Tarzan swing or the nuking the fridge or whatever. But for rhyme or reason, I don't know, but Mangold made it work, right? I wasn't like, oh my God, this is so fucking stupid. The other night, in preparation for this, because I just was in the indie mood, I watched a little bit of Raiders on Disney Plus, and I was watching the famous truck scene. And it was really interesting because when he does the thing that in the theater at the time, people were like, oh my fucking God, where he slides under the truck, gets back on, takes over the truck by crawling up on the front of it again. It was the most amazing stunt you'd ever fucking seen. When I watched it again, it played as a little goofy. And this is my favorite movie of all time, or one of my favorite movies. It played as a little goofy. And so it was really interesting to look at movie 1, 2, and 3, because a lot of people were defending Crystal Skull back in the day and saying, well, the nuke the fridge thing, how is that more crazy than ripping some guy's heart out and it's still beating, or all this other crazy shit that happened in Raiders? And, you know, you could rightly so argue that those films still were able to ground themselves, like the new one, in a way that made those things believable. But I actually think what it is now is probably, if it was the 80s, the fridge thing would have worked and the Mutt Williams thing would have worked. It's just that humor, like the audience's taste in humor, I think has evolved and moved on and just changed in general, for better or for worse, for more or less sophisticated is irrelevant. It's just a different thing that makes people laugh now and makes people go, oh, that's cheesy now. And I think what's cool about Destiny is Dial of Destiny kind of, not the humor, but it gets where the audience's en masse mind is in terms of what can be acceptable when. And I think Crystal Skull was literally like, let's lift the exact same mentality from 1981 and put it in 2008. And it just, Spielberg, I remember in interviews, was like, I made the same kind of movie. It's like, yeah, but you didn't move the bodies, did you? Shh, that's a deep cut. It shouldn't be a deep cut. If you haven't seen that, shame on you. But anyway, he's like, I made the same kind of movie. but you needed to evolve the humor a little bit. But anyway, okay, so if you're going to see the movie and you're just going to it, indie, whatever, it's a 3 or 4. There's some moments you'll be glad you saw it. It's not a bad movie. It's a very disappointing movie. If you're an indie fan, the first 30 to 40 minutes are like a great 7 out of 10. You're going to be like, this is cool. This is what it should have been for the last 20, 30 years. Every couple years we get a new Indiana Jones movie like this. But the overall film probably is a 5 if you're an indie fan. And then it's probably lower because it makes you sad because you realize what we could have had. But to be fair, there are people who are like my age who say, oh my God, it's wonderful. I loved it. I cried. I'm emotional. So, there's my review of it. Here we go with the spoilers, which is really just the ending. I thought it was batshit. It was wonderful. Basically, if you're curious, they find the dial of Archimedes. I'm saying his name right, mathematician. And it's able to predict. It doesn't cause fissures in space and time, but it's able to predict where they are. And so they use it. And the Nazis want to fly, today's Nazis, well, the 1969 Nazis, it was kind of nice to see even in the 70s, Harrison Ford or Indy going, fuck these Nazis. Because the fact that we are actually having conversations in our real world today about Nazis, like, well, they're fucking Nazis. Put a fucking bullet in their fucking brain. But anyway, the Nazis get this dial and they charter a plane to go back in time to World War II, to 1939. I think the main guy is going to kill Hitler or something about the X-1 bomb. I didn't quite understand. He was going to basically show Hitler either how he fucked up the war so the Nazis could win, or he was going to take over from Hitler so they could win. And that was pretty fucking cool. But they go back in time and they get the date wrong, or Indy doesn't, but the bad guy who was great, the guy in Death Stranding, Mads Mikkelsen or something, he gets the dates, his calculations are wrong, and they end up going back to like Roman times. And the plane comes out of this space-time rift 100 years before Christ, 200 years before Christ, and there's like Roman warships, and a city's like attacking them with catapults, and it's like Indiana Jones has literally gone back in time, like way back in time. And I thought it was batshit, but it was really cool. And the plane crashes and stuff, and Indy's like, or they parachute out, and Indy meets Archimedes, and Indy's like, I want to stay. And then they really fuck it up because his goddaughter like punches him in the face and knocks him out and brings him home, and Marion is back because they were getting a divorce. She's back and Sala's there, and it's like the ultimate treasure is family. And so, it's just like, you know what? Okay, maybe it's certainly a nice message, but if this is the last Indiana Jones story, let him stay in the past where he fucking wanted to stay. Can you imagine? Think about, you don't need a post-credit scene, but think about the epilogue of this fucking movie. Indy vanishes into the past, life goes on. And although that would have been interesting because then the Nazis could have gotten the Ark, but let's just assume everything works out. The idea that Indiana Jones now is literally the treasure that he spent his whole life searching for, that he leaves little clues on reliefs and stuff. So it's like Helena Shaw then is like, it's like she finds the Ark or she finds this or that, and there's a message to her from the past from Indiana Jones. Come on. And then 5 movies down the road, they go hunting for the bones of Indiana Jones because he was buried with this wreck. Come on. That would have been amazing. But instead, we have to have this schmaltzy fucking shit. And I like schmaltz. And I like Marion. I'm glad Indy's back with Marion, but are you shitting me? Hell, they had the fucking dial of Archimedes. It's not like she couldn't have gone back and come back a couple years later. God damn it. Which brings me to Kathy Kennedy. I have not been one of these guys calling for Kathy Kennedy's ouster. I was a Spielberg fan from Close Encounters. She was with Spielberg from E.T. every step of the way. She is one of the most successful and best movie producers in the history of Hollywood. I am not shitting on her skills, talent, or ability, or what she has done for the medium. But there is a point where you got to say this job she's in as the head of Lucasfilm, as much as it's kind of poetry and it rhymes, as much as it's kind of a romantic thing that she came home to help usher in the new whatever, she's not good at that job. She just isn't good at that fucking job. The fact that this script was greenlit as is. I mean, bringing Mangold on was great, and that was a great move. He's a great director. Great for this. God, he was great for this, especially that opening 40 minutes. It was just like, it felt like Indy. It felt like, what was the cinematographer's name? Douglas Slocum, who did the first 3 Raiders. Just beautiful earth tones, and it felt like a movie from the 80s. It was wonderful. But she's not good at this particular job she finds herself in. She just isn't. Rise of Skywalker, that should have been enough to go, you don't greenlight a script like Rise of Skywalker. But you know what? It's a gimme. Maybe she was forced to because they had to have the toys for Christmas. Whatever. Fine. And then you greenlight this fucking script? Come on, man. There was no banging the drum, Indy has to get out now. This is a $300 million movie, one of the most expensive movies ever made. You think they could have made sure the script was like, oh my God, have you read this fucking script? It blows you away. Don't tell me this script blew people away when there is no momentum for this, for 2/3 of it, where it's just simply the dial of Archimedes getting knocked back and forth between different hands. That's all it is. You know, life happens. Who knows behind the scenes happening at Disney? Maybe she wants to quit, and George Lucas is like, I have a hidden thing in my contract. I don't know, he sounds like that. That says I get to say who stays in that chair for 10 years. I have no idea, but it's not good. And I would love to see her given the respect and accolades and rewards and kudos that she so rightfully deserves for all she's done. But I also would like to see her gracefully, kindly removed from that position and either given another position within Disney where she can do her work, or let her go back to Kennedy Marshall where she was producing great films with her husband, Frank Marshall. But she's not that guy. You're not that guy, pal. Anyway, there you go. There's my very long Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny review thoughts. I will say, though, if you look at the thumbnail, I look happy. It's because the character has meant a great deal to me. He's one of my top 3 characters. They vacillate between Spider-Man, Indiana Jones, and Superman, and Jed Bartlett, so 4. I have nothing but love for Indy. I adore this character. I adore what he meant to me as a kid and as an adult in terms of inspiring me to go on to my own Ark of the Covenant, metaphorically, in life. I just love you, Indiana Jones. I love you so much. I really, really do. And I thank you for all you've given us. Even the lukewarm, bad Indiana Jones is still Indiana Jones. And for that, I'm grateful. But as a movie, this is not great. It's kind of sucks that it went out this way. But moving on, what's next?